All right. So right now, what we're going to cover, we're going to quickly go over GitHub, specifically GitHub, Lima Platoon's GitHub organization. Then we're going to start InstallFest. InstallFest is what we're going to be doing is installing all the necessary software on your machine for the entire cohort. We just want to get it done out of the way day one. So over the course of the next 90 or so minutes, it might take a little longer because this is the first time we've done it collectively remotely. It might take a little longer, but hopefully by 12:30, everyone, we should get through this. And if not, it's okay. We will individually, one-on-one, make sure everything's installed. So yesterday, everyone should have received a GitHub invite via email to Lima Platoon's GitHub organization. I'm looking here of the people who are currently in the organization. There's 3 pending invitations, Jason, Adam, and Eric. I'm not quite sure if you guys have received that or if you need to send out another link, but you should have. Everyone should have received it. So GitHub, does anybody, someone tell me what GitHub is? No?
Well,
I would say it's a version control. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's a version control platform, and also where you could collaborate and other people could submit their code as well. So it's a way of sharing and, version control as well.
Yeah, pretty much. In addition, it's just essentially an online repository of where you store your personal code, whether it's your personal code as a person or as an organization. So GitHub is broken down into organizations, and right now we're currently in the Lima Platoon organization. If you just go to github.com/Lima Platoon, you should be able to see all the repositories. And if you haven't accepted the invite or can't see it, you can also just go to github.com/Lima Platoon. And if you receive that invite, you should just be able to accept that invite. So this is Lima Platoon's GitHub organization. It's broken down to all our repositories. These are all challenges, assessments, and or just anything associated with Lima Platoon code base. So in Lima Platoon, there's a repository called curriculum. And our curriculum is broken down into weeks and then by days. So if you go to Lima Platoon/curriculum, you'll come here. We have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I highly recommend bookmarking this just because you're going to be using it a lot. So week 1, we're currently on week 1. And then once we click into week 1, curriculum week 1, then it's broken down into days. Today is May 4th, 5th, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So let's go into today's curriculum. So this is everything that we're going to be covering today. Does anybody have any questions up until this point? Nope. Okay. So Monday, May 4th, 2020.
John, sorry, Tom?
Yep.
Not to just get ahead of it. Would it be a bad idea if I cloned all this to my PC?
So I would not recommend cloning this specific to your PC because we do make changes throughout the program. And if you're using
okay.
So yeah. So don't clone this specific repo to your own machine. Just utilize the one that's in the Lima Platoon organization. So Monday, May 4th, almost all at the very top, we have video resources. So these are we record all of our lectures. So I'm currently recording this lecture right now. This is all of last cohort's week 1 lectures. So it's broken down by week 1, day 1, and it's followed by the specific lecture topic, what we did, and it's how many videos during that day. So this is video 1 of 4 for that day. So week 1, day 1, InstallFest 2 of 4. Week 1, day 1, then we cover the command line. That's video 3 of 4. And then the IDE, Integrated Developer Environment, 4 of 4. So these is all of last cohort's video lectures. And that's just Lima Platoon. We also have Juliet. And before that was India. And then, but anyway. So these are all week 1 recorded lectures of last lecture. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing InstallFest, and we're just going to install everything that's required for all the software that's required for the rest of the cohort. So it's going to be chaos. Your goal is to get a working environment, not to understand everything that happens. Just try to follow along. We'll take a lot of breaks for everyone to download everything. And if you're running into errors, feel free to Slack myself or John or Meryl or Gus if they're available, and they'll help you troubleshoot it. But we might have to do a one-on-one. We might have to do a one-on-one session to get you up to date. And it's okay if you fall behind. But with that, the first things we're going to install all this stuff right now, and then we're going to take a quick break. So first, you kind of need I did ask everyone to install Xcode. So it's a large download. It's like 3-something gigs. And the reason why, so is it Xcode? So all your Macs, all your Macs essentially come shipped with the ability to become a developer machine. It's shipped. It's not shipped with it. So if you want to convert your Mac to a developer machine, you need to install Xcode, and you need an Apple ID to do that. It's a large download. I mentioned you should have done that before coming to class, just because it could take a long time. Next, you're going to want to install, I see some chats. Uses a different email I figured out this morning. Need a new invite. Okay. Cool. We'll get that invite to you shortly. Next, we're going to install Slack. Most of you have Slack installed, and everyone does. But I know there were some audio issues with people who are using the online version versus the downloaded version, and that's expected. But we want you to actually download Slack from the actual developer website, the manufacturer Slack's, from the actual company. So this little download, this is what we want to download. So it downloads here. We don't want to download it from the Mac store because it doesn't have all the capabilities if you download it directly from the actual company. So it's Slack opening. So download Slack. Then you're going to want to download Zoom. Everyone already has Zoom obviously installed. So you want to download Zoom. I think it automatically downloads it. And then we want everyone to sign up for Operation Code. Operation Code. Oh, yep, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Whenever you download an application from the web, like Slack or Zoom, make sure that you put it, for Mac users, make sure you put it in your applications folder so that it loads from the root of your user rather than from like a particular folder. So once you download it, make sure you drop it into applications.
Yep.
Yeah, after you.
Yep.
It's on the left, Tom.
I'm sorry?
It's on the left. So after you download it, you
yeah.
and then you put it inside of applications.
Yep. So you unzip this, and then once you're done, you're going to want to, once you actually have the thing unzipped and downloaded, then you want to drag it and drop it into applications. As John mentioned, it's installed at your root level of your root user. So once you do that, then you're going to want to join Operation Code. This is a nonprofit organization that helps veterans and their family members break into tech. It's a really good resource. It's also part of. You can also join their Slack channel. You can ask technical help, career advice. Yeah, this is operation code up here. And then you're going to want to download VS Code. If you have a Windows machine here, if you have a Mac, you're going to want to download it. Come here. After you install it in your downloads, then you're going to, again, want to drag it and drop it into your applications. So once it's downloaded here, once you click it, unzip it, you're going to want to drag it and drop it into applications. A lot of the times, if you like, it automatically, a window will come up and say like drag and drop into applications. So it kind of automatically kind of forces you to do that or wants you to do that. And then if you're a Mac user, you can download iTerm 2. It's just another, it's another terminal that allows you to essentially interact with your computer in a non-GUI way. So instead of clicking around on folders, like here, you're able to interact with your computer from the command line. And then, so let's take 10 minutes and install all of this: Slack, Zoom, sign up for operation code, VS Code, and then iTerm, and then stop right here. Does anybody have any questions? All right, let's get started again. So we've installed the Apple ID Xcode. We've installed Slack, Zoom, VS Code, and iTerm. We've also signed up for Operation Code. And for all the software that we installed, we dragged it into our applications folder to have it installed at the root user of the computer. Next, we're gonna click on this Complete InstallFest. And this is where we're gonna actually install everything, all the additional software that we need. So we're gonna install everything that you need for this course. Please do this in order. So we already installed Visual Studio Code, understanding the Unix environment, Homebrew, SQLite, Postgres, Python, Bash, and there's some other stuff. So we've already installed Visual Studio Code. Next, we're going to install the code command. This is a command that allows you to essentially open a file directory in VS Code using the command line. So after installing VS Code from the website and putting it in your applications folder, please follow these instructions up to including restart the terminal. So I'm going to click on this link, HTTP, this one right here. It's going to open it up. So you're going to want to follow all these instructions: launch VS Code, open the command palette. This is, I think, that's I think Windows, but I think it's Command Shift. What is it? Command Shift P? Yeah, Command Shift P on your Mac. So open up the command palette, type shell command, find the shell command install code command path. So you're going to follow all these instructions all the way up to here and then stop right there. So what that's going to look like, I just opened VS Code, Command Shift P. I type in shell command, and it's one of the first ones. It says shell command install code command in path. So if you click on that, install it, and then once you restart the terminal, which is this iTerm, that's what we installed. So this is terminal. Don't worry if yours doesn't look precisely like mine. We'll get to that later. If I literally just type code into the terminal and click enter, it will open up VS Code automatically. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes and install that. But if I wanted to use something else, I can use VS Code as a built-in terminal. So if I go to in VS Code, if I go to terminal, new terminal, a new terminal should show up, and you can do stuff in here as well. But for right now, I'm just going to use iTerm because it doesn't take up the entire screen. Cool. So let's move on. Next, we're going to install Homebrew. Homebrew is what they call is like the missing package manager for the Mac OS. So it essentially like allows you to customize packages and versions of software that you have installed on your computer. So John uses the car analogy. I kind of think of it as like if you're buying a home, you can buy a spec home, which is a home that's already built and it's just something you move into. You can't get anything customized. Or you can go directly to the builder and be like, hey, I want these specific kitchen cabinets to look this way. I want this layout. I want this trim work. I want crown molding. I want, wainscoting. I want a finished basement. So a Homebrew essentially allows you to customize the packages and the versions of those packages on your Mac OS. So in order to do that, I'm again here in my iTerm. First, I just want to let's ensure that we've installed Homebrew correctly. We can type in which brew, and we don't want to include, we can highlight this line, except do not include the $sign. The $sign just indicates that this command will be in a terminal. Just kind of like right here, it's that thing. So if I type in which brew, if something already shows up, this like user local bin brew, that means you've already installed Homebrew at some point, so you don't have to do anything else. You may have followed a tutorial or a Udemy course that had you install Homebrew already, but if you haven't, if nothing shows up, you're going to want to copy this line into your terminal, again, excluding the $sign. So you're going to want to run that command.
Hey, Tom, can I interrupt real quick?
Yep.
Since we're not a Ruby cohort, should we rename that Ruby directory to like Python or something?
Oh, shit. Has that always been like that?
That one you need Ruby in order to install with Homebrew.
Oh, okay.
So when you actually install Homebrew, it's going to take a little while to install. So Homebrew is going to take a lot of work that lets us manage our software version. So always ensure that it's up to date and that it's healthy. So kind of always run either daily or a few times a week, always run brew update, and it's going to take a little bit of time to actually run. Probably should
You
have.
can kind of think of Homebrew as like if you have an iPhone or a Google phone, there's the App Store, and you're installing multiple versions of software. So if I download the Chase mobile app from the App Store, and then I download Facebook from the App Store, you never have to worry about updating those ever, because the App Store takes care of all different versions and takes care of updating things for you. The same thing applies to Homebrew on your machine. You're going to be installing Postgres, which is a SQL database. You're going to install SQLite. You're going to install Python and JavaScript, and that's all going to be managed using the Homebrew package manager. You can think of that as like the App Store. And then whenever you run brew update, it reaches out to whatever thing they have going on in the background. It says, what version of software do you have right now? And what do we need to update in order for that to work well on your machine?
So I did brew update, and then afterwards I can copy brew doctor. And boom, morning you have unlinked kegs, blah, 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 Xcode. So my Xcode is outdated, but all right, not a big deal. Whoa. So once I actually do fix all that and do brew doctor, it should say your system is ready to brew. So let's take, I'm going to pause the recording there, and we'll take like 5 minutes till 11:13 to install Homebrew. All right. So we'll take a couple minutes and just do inspect your path and make sure that user local bin comes before user bin comes before bin. Is anybody having issues? Most people good? So we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to next install a bunch of packages or a bunch of software. We're going to install SQLite, Postgres, Python. So I'm just going to go through this real quick, and then we're going to stop down right between Python, before Python. So we're going to do run brew, install SQLite. SQLite is just a lightweight, it's essentially a file that enables you to run SQL queries on it. So so open up the iTerm. Just do brew install SQLite. And then after that, you're going to want to run brew install Postgres. And click enter. So Postgres is just a piece of software that requires a server to interact with. It's easiest to let OS X launch utility keep the server running. Otherwise, we'd have to restart the server. So I'm going to give a couple minutes, or after you install SQLite and then install Postgres, we actually want to, every time you restart or start your machine, we want the Postgres server to always be running in the background. It doesn't take a whole lot of memory. It doesn't take a whole lot of resources. So it's not that, doesn't constrain your machine that much. In order to do that, we want to run these two commands, one right after another. This ln, so we want to run that command. And then followed by this launch TL load. Once you do that, you're going to type in, you're going to copy this, which Postgres. And you should see this user local bin Postgres. And then you're also going to type in which PSQL. Whoop. And you're going to see user local bin PSQL. Now Homebrew is going to keep your Postgres server alive so you can just develop awesome apps and not worry about the database. After you do this, which Postgres or which PSQL, you just want to ensure that your Postgres server is running by running this ps aux grep Postgres. And if anything shows up, you should be good to go. They got all this stuff running. Postgres. Next, we can actually see if Postgres is installed. We can actually create an actual database. So we can do create DB user. Oh, so I've already dropped DB. So I've already have this database. So if I clear, if you literally just type in clear, it'll clear the contents of your terminal. It really just pushes everything to the top of the screen. So I want to create this create DB user. And I click enter. Doesn't look like anything happened, which is a good sign. Now I want to go into the Postgres or the SQL server or Postgres server or the console. So by typing PSQL and the name of the database that I just created, which is this $user, which is literally just the user of your machine. So right here, this TA pre, that's the name of my machine. So now I'm in the SQL console. that means it's worked correctly. And to get out of this, I can just do \Q, and to get back to the main terminal. So do all that and stop at Python. Give you 7 minutes to do that. All right, let's keep moving forward. So we just installed a SQLite database. We brew installed Postgres. We made sure that Postgres is running at all times on our machine. We ran this command to ensure that it's in fact running. We created a user, or a database with our user name. And then we just made sure that database does exist and we're able to access the SQL console. Next, we're going to install Python. Python comes built in with Mac, but like the Python and all the software that that comes installed in Mac is like really old. And it's like the bare bones minimum you need. So it's a very old version of Python. It's like Python 2.7 or something like that. So, but we're on like Python 3.7, whatever it is. So we want to upgrade Python to the newest version of Python. So if you do brew and pulse install Python, copy paste that in here, brew install Python. See mine, it says warning, Python 3.7.7 is already installed. It's just not linked. That's fine. But so it might take a little while to install Python on your computer, but once it's finished, type in Python in your command line, and you can actually Python. See, I'm in a Python terminal. I can execute Python in here, and it also says Python 3.7. If you don't have it installed, it will say like Python 3.2. Next, despite installing the most recent version of Python on your machine, your terminal still likes using the old version. So we want to create a bash profile. A bash profile is essentially anytime you open up your terminal, it's going to execute whatever code is in there, and it's going to customize your machine a little bit. So it's kind of like, I don't know, if you're a high roller and you go to Vegas and you spend a lot of money at a hotel, they know you're coming, so they'll when they're coming, they're going to ask like, what do you want in your room? Do you want, like, they might give you a gift basket, they might change something about the room, or have like specific alcohol available or anything like that. So your bash profile enables you to customize your terminal and your machine to your liking. So in order to do that, so we need to create a bash profile by typing touch bash profile or ~/ bash profile. So that creates a bash profile. And then we want to open that bash profile in VS Code. So up at the very top, we installed that code command. And so we want to code and then the name of the file. And that should open up my bash profile in VS Code. So if I just type in code ~/ .bash profile, it opens up my current bash profile. Don't worry if yours doesn't look like this. That's okay. We'll get to that later. So once you touch bash profile, it creates it. You're going to code bash profile. That opens your bash profile into VS Code. And then we're going to paste this export path user local .python lib execute path. This ensures that every time you open up your terminal, you are going to be using the latest version of Python. So you can paste that in here. I already kind of did it. So it's right here, Python 3.7. So once you paste it, you're going to save it. You're going to exit out of VS Code. And then you're going to want to reload your bash profile to make sure that all the new commands take place, or all the new features, all the new customizations actually take into effect. So source, bash profile, and then you don't see anything come up, but that's how you reload your bash profile on your machine. And now if you type in Python again in your terminal, you should see it change from 2.7 to 3.7. I'm gonna pause it right, keep going. So next we're gonna install in Node Version Manager. So when you're a developer and you're an engineer, you're gonna be working on applications through your job on personal projects, and depending on the application you're working on, it can be a different version of Node than the newest version. So Node Version Manager allows you to manage the different versions of Node you have on your computer or at any given moment on your machine. So I might be working on an application that's like brand new, so it's got the latest version of Node, but my job, I might be using a really old version of Node, like, I don't know, version 14. I don't even know if I don't even know what version they're on right now. So Brew, like Node Version Manager, allows you to manage the different versions of Node. So we're going to do Brew install NVM Node Version Manager. And then once you actually install it, when it's installed, it's going to tell you to paste this stuff into your bash profile. So let's see if that actually, trying to see if it does it. Brew install NVM. Oh. So it's already, everything's kind of reinstalled. I don't want to reinstall it, but once it actually installs it and everything, it's going to tell you to it's going to tell you to put this code in your bash profile. So again, we're going to have to open up our bash profile. And then copy this and paste it in there. Like I pasted it right here. It loads the Node Version Manager and then loads this NVM bash completion. And then once you load that, save your bash profile, and then you're going to want to, again, reload your bash profile by executing source bash profile. And then you're going to want to install the current version of Node. So right now, the current version of Node is 12.16. So you want to NVM install 12. So NVM or version 12.16 is already installed, now using, yep. And it also comes with npm already installed, which is Node Package Manager.
A quick question regarding the NVM install. I know they're currently, at least when I tried to download it yesterday, they're at 14. Do we need the most current one, or are we going to be working strictly with Node version 12 for this class?
They're at what version of Node?
I got that they have like 14.
I think that's, yeah. So that's like, it's recommended for most users to use.
Okay.
This has like additional features that's probably not everything's been debugged yet. It just has like the most current latest features, but not everything.
Okay.
Not everything is stable yet.
Yeah, because what I did was if you do NVM install Node, just written out versus 12, it'll install the most current stable. So I just wasn't sure if we needed specifically the 12.6, for the class or just most current stable.
We'll just keep it at this right now. I'm not sure if we install the latest version, nothing should really break, but this is fine if you do 12. And you can always revert back with the node version manager, you can always change.
Exactly. Okay.
So. Next, we're going to install Git using Homebrew. And Git is just a version control manager. Brew install, if you just type in or copy paste brew install Git. And then type in which Git. You should see user local bin Git. And once you see that, you should be good to go. Next, we're going to create a git ignore global file by essentially it's just going to hold on. We're just going to create a git ignore global file by doing touch tilde / dot git ignore global. So touch git ignore global. I think mine's already built. And then you're gonna run this command, git config global. And that should be it. So once you get down to here, stop. We're almost done.
Hey, Tom, when I did which git, it gave me user /bin /git vice. There's no local in there. Is that?
I think that. Let's see.
Hey, that happened to me too, and I just resourced the bash profile, and then it was selecting the right one.
Resource the bash. So. That source.
Another way to resource the bash is basically you can close out your terminal and reopen it. It should automatically resource it.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime you open up your terminal, it literally just runs that file again.
It's saying insecure directories. I let it go with a yes before. Is that?
Secure directories. When you run source?
When I run the source, yeah.
We'll take a look at it after we go through this.
Okay.
That's the ZSH thing. I have no idea how to help with that. All right, give it 2 more minutes. All right, next we're going to want to set up our git config setup to recognize our GitHub credentials. So we're going to be pushing a lot of code to GitHub. And so we essentially want to connect our GitHub account to our machine. And so every time you push it up to there, we don't have to require a username and password every time we push our code up to GitHub.
So what we can do is follow these next three instructions. So we can set up your command line Git username. So we're going to open up a terminal, like right here. We're going to say git config global username. And then right here, instead, in place of Mona Lisa, this is going to be your GitHub username. So mine is Tom Preet. Other people's are whatever your GitHub username is. It's going to be this right here. And then you can confirm that you in fact have your username in place by doing git config -- global username by copying that. See right here, mine says Tom Preet. That's my GitHub username. And then essentially do the exactly same thing with your email address. You want to scroll all the way kind of down to setting your email address for a single repository, or setting your commit email address in Git right down here. You're going to want to do git config global username and then your email address that's associated with your GitHub account. Then once you do that, you're going to write git config global user.email. And this is the email that's associated with my GitHub account, Preet316. It's my birthday. It has nothing to do with wrestling or anything like that. And then finally, you want to cache your GitHub password so you don't have to keep on typing it in every time you push up to GitHub. Up here, go to password. Follow these instructions. Do git credential OSX keychain. And then if it's not installed, you can do git credential OSX keychain. And then the first time you actually commit or push, the first time you actually push up to GitHub, which means like upload your code into GitHub, it'll prompt you for your I think your username and password. And after that, it's going to be fine. You don't have to type it in ever again. So once you do that, we want to ensure that VS Code is our default text editor. There's a bunch of text editors out there. There's VS Code, there's Sublime, there's Atom, but VS Code is the main one we're going to be using primarily because it's becoming more and more popular simply because of the fact of all the extensions. So we want to ensure that anytime you open up a text editor, it's going to be VS Code. And if you don't see anything happen, that's fine. That's a good sign. So I'll give you 7 minutes to get all that stuff set up, and at 11:55 we'll do this, and then we'll take an hour for lunch.